A 64-year-old woman with no mathematical training wakes up in a janitor's closet and finds herself compulsively writing equations on a chalkboard she can't understand. By morning, she's covered 3 boards with symbols and proofs that look like nonsense to her. But when a physics professor walks in and sees what she's written, he goes completely pale and whispers, "This is impossible. This solves the Riemann hypothesis." The equation Dorothy Chen wrote in her sleep is worth $1 million and represents a mathematical breakthrough that's eluded the world's greatest minds for 160 years, and she has absolutely no idea how she knew it. Stay until the end, because what Dorothy discovered about that janitor's closet, about why her mind suddenly unlocked, will change everything we understand about human consciousness and forgotten genius. Dorothy Chen had been a cafeteria worker at Mansfield University for 38 years before the administration eliminated her position in budget cuts. At 64, with minimal savings and no family, she couldn't afford her rent. After a month of couch surfing with former co-workers whose patience ran thin, Dorothy found herself on the street. She remembered the university's mathematics building, Old Preston Hall, where she'd worked the cafeteria for 2 decades. The building was mostly empty at night, used only by graduate students who worked late. Dorothy knew the side entrance near the loading dock had a lock that never quite caught. She slipped inside after midnight. The building was silent, dimly lit by emergency lighting. Dorothy explored carefully until she found what she needed. A janitor's closet on the 3rd floor, spacious enough to lie down, with cleaning supplies that suggested it was still in use but not accessed frequently. She made a bed from her sleeping bag on the concrete floor. It wasn't comfortable, but it was warm and hidden. The closet had one unusual feature. The back wall wasn't concrete or drywall. It was a large rolling chalkboard, the kind professors used in classrooms, that someone had apparently stored here and forgotten. Dorothy fell asleep looking at that chalkboard, at the faint ghost markings of old equations still visible despite attempts to erase them. She woke up at 4:47 a.m. with chalk dust on her hands and 3 chalkboards completely covered in mathematical notation. The rolling board had been pulled out to reveal 2 more boards behind it, all filled with her handwriting. Symbols, numbers, Greek letters, complex equations arranged in careful proofs. Dorothy stared at what she'd written, her heart pounding. She didn't remember writing any of it. She'd been asleep, and she didn't understand any of it. Dorothy had barely passed high school algebra. She'd never taken calculus, never studied advanced mathematics. She couldn't even help her co-workers' kids with their geometry homework. Yet here were 3 boards covered in mathematics so complex she couldn't comprehend a single line. She tried to read it, to understand what her sleeping self had written. The symbols were familiar. She'd seen professors use them on boards she'd wiped clean over the years. But their meaning was completely opaque to her. It was like reading a foreign language she'd heard but never learned. Dorothy was about to erase it. Evidence of her presence here was dangerous, when she heard footsteps in the hallway. She froze. The door handle turned. Professor Richard Ashford, head of the mathematics department, entered the closet looking for cleaning supplies. He froze when he saw Dorothy. Then his eyes moved to the chalkboards behind her. His face went from confusion to shock to something close to terror. He stepped closer, ignoring Dorothy entirely, reading the boards with increasing intensity. His hand came up to his mouth. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Oh my God. This is—" "I'm sorry," Dorothy stammered. "I was sleeping here. I'll clean it and go. I just needed somewhere." "Who wrote this?" Professor Ashford's voice was shaking. "Who wrote this equation?" I think I did, but I don't remember. I must have been sleepwalking or— You wrote this?" He looked at her like she'd claimed to be an alien. "Do you have any idea what this is?" Dorothy shook her head. Professor Ashford pulled out his phone and started photographing the boards frantically. "This is a proof, a complete, rigorous proof of the Riemann hypothesis. Do you understand what that means?" "No. It's one of the Millennium Prize problems. 7 mathematical problems considered the most important, unsolved questions in mathematics. Solve one. You get $1 million prize. The Riemann hypothesis has been unsolved since 1859. The greatest mathematical minds in history have tried and failed. And you He gestured at the boards. You just solved it in a janitor's closet. If this revelation is shocking you, like it shocked Professor Ashford, please hit that like button and subscribe. This story gets even more impossible. Within an hour, the closet was filled with mathematicians. Professor Ashford had called every senior faculty member he could reach. They crowded into the small space, reading the boards, arguing about notation, checking the logic step by step. Dorothy sat on her sleeping bag, bewildered, as these brilliant academics discussed what she'd written. The approach is completely novel, one professor said. She's using a framework I've never seen before. The proof is rigorous, another confirmed. I can't find any errors, the logic is sound. But how? A third demanded. No one just intuitively solves the Riemann hypothesis. This requires years of advanced training, deep understanding of analytic number theory, complex analysis. Professor Ashford turned to Dorothy. You really don't remember writing this? No. I woke up and it was just there. I don't even understand what I wrote. What's your educational background? High school. I worked in the cafeteria here for 38 years. The mathematicians exchanged looks of disbelief. This doesn't make sense, one said. She couldn't have written this unconsciously. The level of sophistication, the novel approach, this represents years of thought, of understanding. You can't just channel mathematical genius in your sleep. But Professor Ashford was looking at the chalkboard itself, at the faint ghost markings underneath Dorothy's fresh equations. Unless, he said slowly, unless it's not about her. It's about this room. He turned to Dorothy. How long have you been sleeping here? Just one night. And you woke up with this written? He looked at the other professors. We need to research this building's history, specifically what this room was used for. Over the next few days, while Dorothy stayed in university housing that Professor Ashford arranged, the mathematics department investigated Preston Hall's history. What they discovered was extraordinary. From 1962 to 1978, the third floor of Preston Hall had housed the office and private study of Dr. Catherine Morrison, one of the most brilliant mathematicians of her generation. She'd spent 16 years working on advanced problems in number theory, including extensive research on the Riemann hypothesis. In 1978, Dr. Morrison had suffered a massive stroke while working in her study. She died at her desk, surrounded by her research. After her death, the university had cleaned out the room, converting it to storage, and eventually to a janitor's closet. The chalkboards on the walls were original, the same boards Dr. Morrison had used for her work. It's impossible, Professor Ashford said. But the evidence suggests that somehow Dorothy accessed Dr. Morrison's mathematical knowledge, information that was somehow preserved in this space. They tested the theory. Dorothy slept in the closet again. This time, they left blank chalkboards and stationed observers outside. At exactly 4:47 a.m., Dorothy got up, still completely asleep according to all indicators, and began writing. For 2 hours, she covered the boards with advanced mathematics, her hand moving with confidence and precision her waking self didn't possess. When she woke, she remembered nothing and understood nothing she'd written. The mathematicians documented everything. They had Dorothy sleep in other locations. Nothing happened. Only in that specific closet did she write equations. Only on those specific chalkboards did the genius emerge. Neuroscientists from the university's medical school got involved. They ran tests on Dorothy, brain scans, sleep studies, cognitive assessments. Her waking mathematical ability was exactly what she'd always been, minimal, basic arithmetic only. But when she slept in that closet, something extraordinary activated in her brain. Dr. Sarah Winters, a neuroscientist specializing in consciousness studies, proposed a radical theory. What if consciousness isn't entirely contained in individual brains? What if intense intellectual activity, especially repeated patterns of thought in specific locations, leaves traces? Not supernatural, but quantum, information encoded in the environment that certain individuals under certain conditions can access. It sounded like science fiction, but they had documentation, video footage of Dorothy writing mathematics she couldn't possibly know, proofs that checked out perfectly, a clear correlation between her location and her ability. The Riemann hypothesis proof was verified by mathematicians worldwide. It was legitimate, groundbreaking, perfect. The Clay Mathematics Institute confirmed Dorothy Chen had solved one of the Millennium Prize problems. She was awarded the $1 million prize. But Dorothy didn't feel like she'd earned it. "I didn't solve anything," she told Professor Ashford. "Dr. Morrison solved it. I was just the channel." "Perhaps," he said. "Or perhaps Dr. Morrison's years of work prepared the solution, and your mind, unburdened by mathematical training that might interfere, was able to access and complete it. Either way, you've given the world something extraordinary." Dorothy used part of the prize money to establish a scholarship fund for working-class students at the university, people like herself who never got the chance for advanced education. She used another part to fund Dr. Winters's consciousness research, and she continued sleeping in that closet. The university formally gave her permission, even installing a proper bed and basic amenities. Several nights a week, Dorothy would sleep there, and most mornings she'd wake to find new mathematics on the boards, solutions to other problems, novel proofs, approaches no one had considered. The mathematics community was divided. Some called it the greatest hoax in academic history. Others saw it as evidence of something profound about how knowledge works, how genius persists, how the boundaries between minds might be more permeable than we imagine. Dorothy became famous, the cafeteria worker who solved impossible mathematics in her sleep. She was interviewed, studied, written about, but she remained humble about it. "I'm not a genius," she'd say. "I'm just someone who happened to sleep in the right room at the right time." Dr. Winters's research expanded to other locations where intense intellectual activity had occurred. They found similar effects in 3 other sites: a physics laboratory, a composer's studio, a chess club room. In each case, individuals with no training in those fields showed remarkable unconscious abilities when they slept in those spaces. Today, Dorothy is 66. She still sleeps in the janitor's closet several times a week, still wakes to find equations she can't understand. The mathematics department keeps the boards preserved, photographs every new proof, attempts to understand the implications. She's been offered positions at universities worldwide, opportunities to study, to try to consciously learn the mathematics she writes unconsciously. But Dorothy declined them all. "That's not who I am," she explained. "I'm a cafeteria worker who somehow became a conduit for someone else's genius. That's enough. That's more than enough." The closet has been officially renamed the Morrison-Chen Mathematics Study. Students sometimes request to sleep there, hoping to access whatever mysterious knowledge resides in that space. Most experience nothing. But occasionally, someone will wake up having written something extraordinary, something beyond their conscious understanding. Professor Ashford believes Dorothy's case will eventually revolutionize our understanding of consciousness, knowledge, and how information persists beyond individual minds. Dr. Winters believes they've discovered a new form of learning, of accessing collective human knowledge encoded in the spaces where that knowledge was created. Dorothy just knows that being evicted, being homeless, sleeping in a janitor's closet, the worst period of her life, led her to become part of something impossible and wonderful. If Dorothy's story moved you, please like this video and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to know that genius can emerge from the most unexpected places. Leave a comment. Do you believe knowledge can be preserved in physical spaces? Would you sleep in that closet? Thank you for watching, and remember that sometimes losing everything puts us in the exact place where we're meant to discover something extraordinary. Sometimes a janitor's closet holds more than cleaning supplies. And sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come from the minds that never expected to make them.